The early morning sun stretched over New York City, casting a golden glow across the sprawling terminals of JFK Airport. Travelers moved in a chaotic rhythm, some rushing to catch flights, others dragging luggage through the concourses. Among them walked Johan Willim, blending in perfectly. To the untrained eye, he was in ordinary passenger jeans, a gray T-shirt, and a lightweight jacket, but for those who knew his name, he was Falcon X, the world's most elite intelligence officer. His reputation alone could command respect. In the most dangerous circles, yet today, he carried only a small black backpack and nothing else. Today he was supposed to rest. He made his way to Gate 42 and boarded Flight A97 to London, moving with calm precision. His seat was 12A, a window seat he preferred because it offered a clear view of the wing and the cabin. Around him, passengers. Settled-in families whispering, children fidgeting, business people typing frantically on laptops. Ordinary lives, ordinary moments. Johan silently hoped it would remain that way. The engine started with a steady hum as the aircraft taxied down the runway. Johan's eyes flicked to the city skyline shrinking beneath him, then closed briefly, letting himself relax for the first time in months. The hum of the engines and the subtle vibration under his feet should have been calming, but Johan's instincts never fully rested. Years of surviving operations that would have killed ordinary men had honed his awareness to a razor's edge. *37. Minutes into the flight, he felt it a subtle vibration, almost imperceptible, but distinct. Most passengers wouldn't notice, but Johan's instincts flared. The pattern, the timing, the rhythm, it wasn't ordinary turbulence. The lights flickered, and a low murmur spread through the cabin. He leaned forward, scanning the rows of passengers with sharp, calculating eyes. And then it happened. A deafening boom erupted from the left wing. The aircraft shuddered violently, cups toppled, luggage tumbled from overhead bins, and passengers screamed. Oxygen masks fell like yellow rain from the ceiling. The plane tilted sharply, dipping toward the Atlantic. Drinks spilled, a service cart tipped over, and the air filled with a combined scent of fear, coffee, and burning circuits. Johan braced himself against the armrest, muscles tense and ready. This was no accident. He already knew. This was sabotage. The captain's voice came through the intercom, shaky but professional. Ladies and gentlemen, we have suffered a critical engine failure. Remain calm and stay seated. This is an emergency. Passengers clutched each other, whispered prayers, and tears streaked down faces as panic spread. Johan's mind was already working, calculating the possibilities and the risks. Survival wasn't enough. Saving everyone else was the mission. And then he saw him. Near the forward galley, a man moved with a disturbing calm. While the cabin erupted into chaos, this man was deliberate, dragging a small black suitcase toward the front of the plane. His focus was unnerving. Johan's instincts flared again. The explosion, the timing, the man's behavior, they were all part of a plan. Without hesitation, Johan unbuckled his seatbelt and pushed through the panicked passengers toward the galley. He moved with precise, controlled steps, avoiding luggage and falling objects, his eyes never leaving the man. Every instinct, every past operation, every moment of training guided him. He didn't hesitate. He didn't panic. He was focused on one objective: stop the threat before it could destroy the plane. The man with the suitcase disappeared behind the curtain, leading to the service area near the cockpit. Johan followed, slipping silently through the narrow, vibrating space. Sparks flickered faintly from a damaged maintenance panel, the sharp smell of overheating circuits filling the air. The man knelt beneath it, hands moving over wires with precision. The suitcase wasn't a bomb, not exactly, but it was a device engineered to corrupt the aircraft systems, sensors, engine controls, and communications. Its goal was catastrophic. Total loss of control at 33,000 feet. Asterisk, the man didn't even glance up as Johan approached. "You shouldn't be here," he hissed. Johan ignored the warning. This was no time for words. The fate of 316 lives depended on what he did next. He was ready for the confrontation, ready to act, because for Johan Willim, surviving wasn't enough. Saving everyone else was the mission, and the mission had just begun. The cabin was in chaos. Screams, alarms, and the sound of luggage sliding across the floor filled the air as Flight A97 continued its rapid descent. Johan Willim moved through the panicked passengers with the precision of a predator. Every step was deliberate, every motion controlled as he made his way toward the forward galley. The man with the small black suitcase had disappeared behind the service curtain leading to the cockpit. Johan followed, weaving through the trembling cabin, stepping over fallen belongings and terrified passengers, his mind already calculating. The next move. Asterisk, the narrow space beyond the curtain was dimly lit, vibrating violently with the plane's turbulent motion. Sparks flickered faintly from a damaged maintenance panel near the galley, and the sharp smell of burning circuits mixed with the faint metallic scent of panic. Johan's eyes narrowed. The man was crouched under the panel, moving with unnatural focus. The suitcase lay open beside him, revealing a complex tangle of wires and a compact device that hummed faintly with lethal intent. It wasn't a conventional bomb, it was far more dangerous. It was designed to corrupt the aircraft systems, engine feedback loops, avionics sensors, and communications. If triggered, it could make the plane plummet uncontrollably or cause engines to fail mid-dash flight. Asterisk, "You shouldn't be here," the man said calmly, without looking up. His voice was eerily composed amid the chaos. Asterisk, "I don't have a choice," Johan replied, his tone measured. Asterisk, the man's hand flashed, drawing a small blade from his sleeve. Johan instinctively caught the wrist mid-swing, twisting it with precision. The knife clattered to the floor. The man tried to punch, but Johan blocked it and slammed him into the wall of the service area, pinning him with controlled force. Sparks flew from the damaged panel, illuminating the man's cold, defiant face. The device next to him beeped violently, lights flashing, a countdown in progress. Johan knew it was only a matter of seconds before it would trigger catastrophic feedback across the engines and avionics. Asterisk, with quick, deliberate movements, Johan severed the detonator and disconnected the power source. The countdown froze. Silence fell over the small area for a fleeting moment, broken only by the groaning of the plane as it continued to fight gravity. Johan secured the saboteur with plastic restraints taken from the emergency kit. Every motion was calculated, precise. There was no time for hesitation. Lives hung in the balance. Asterisk, he dragged the disabled device toward the cockpit, stepping carefully as turbulence rocked the plane violently. Passengers screamed and clung to their seats, but Johan remained focused. Every second counted. The flight attendant at the cockpit door tried to stop him. "Sir, you can't, asterisk, let me in." "It's critical," Johan said firmly. She hesitated, then realized the gravity of the situation. With trembling hands, she unlocked the reinforced cockpit door, asterisk, inside. The captain and first officer fought desperately to maintain control. Warning lights flashed red, and the plane shuddered with every gust of wind and turbulence. Asterisk, control feedback is erratic. The first officer shouted, "We're losing altitude fast." Asterisk, Johan stepped forward, placing the device on the auxiliary console. "Your avionics were sabotaged. Sensors, communications, engine feedback, they're corrupted." You're not seeing reality. Manual control only. I can help stabilize the plane, but we have to act fast. Asterisk. The captain's eyes widened, but he recognized immediately that Johan was no ordinary passenger. Can you fix it? He asked, his voice taut with tension. Asterisk. Partially, Johan said. Enough to stabilize the aircraft and send a distress call. Then we deal with the engines. Asterisk. He moved quickly, instructing the pilots step by step. Using a bypass on the corrupted system, he restored partial communication with air traffic control. Sparks flew as he worked on rewiring a backup line, but finally, a faint static signal emerged. The mayday call went out, barely audible over. A storm and alarms. Asterisk. The plane was still damaged, still losing altitude, still at risk, but it was no longer plummeting uncontrollably. For the first time, Johan allowed himself a fraction of hope. Passengers, unaware of the sabotage he had neutralized, clung to seats and whispered prayers, thinking survival was a matter of luck. Johan knew it wasn't luck. It was preparation, precision, and quick action. Asterisk. He wiped sweat from his brow, looking at the pilots. This isn't over, he said quietly. Engine 1 is dead. Systems are partially disabled. We are still flying blind in some critical areas. And we're heading into a storm. Asterisk. The captain swallowed hard. Then what do we do? Asterisk. Johan's eyes scanned the stormy horizon visible through the cockpit windshield, lightning illuminating. The clouds. We survive. We stabilize. And we land. Somehow. That's our only option. Asterisk. The alarms continued to wail, and the plane groaned under stress, but the immediate danger had been contained. The saboteur was restrained, the device neutralized, and the mayday call sent. Johan took a moment to steady himself, though there was no time for rest. The plane was still in peril, and the most dangerous phase of the flight was yet to come. Asterisk. Every second counted. Every decision could mean life or death. And Johan Willim, the world's most elite intelligence officer, was already preparing for what would come next. The storm outside raged with relentless fury. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the dark clouds around Flight A97, and the wind battered the fuselage as the aircraft fought to stay level. Inside the cockpit, the tension was nearly unbearable. The plane groaned with every gust, alarms flashing incessantly. Engine 2 hummed precariously, while Engine 1 remained dead, sputtering but holding. Johan Willim gripped the headrest of the captain's seat, his mind racing, calculating angles, altitudes, and timing. Every movement had to be precise. Every decision could determine the fate of the passengers below. Asterisk. Altitude dropping 21,000 feet. The first officer shouted, his voice strained. Asterisk. Your altimeter is lying, Johan said sharply, eyes scanning the instruments. The sabotage corrupted the sensors. Actual altitude is closer to 27,000. You need to trust me, not the faulty readings. Asterisk. The captain swallowed. Then what do we do? Asterisk. Johan's mind raced. Years of experience had taught him that panic and improvisation were deadly. He needed to stabilize the plane, regain control of the critical systems, and buy enough time to think about landing. He had trained for impossible scenarios before, but this was different, this was real, and failure was not an option. Asterisk. First, he said, we stabilize the descent. Fly her manually. Forget the systems, they're compromised. I'll guide you through every adjustment. Asterisk. The first officer's hands shook slightly as he grasped the controls. Johan instructed him step by step, small adjustments to the pitch, careful manipulation of the throttle, and subtle use of the rudder. The aircraft shuddered violently as it responded. Outside, lightning illuminated turbulent clouds, wind gusts pushing the plane unpredictably, but slowly the descent began to stabilize. Good, Johan said, leaning over the auxiliary panel. Now we rewire communications and sensor feedback. If you can't trust your instruments, you can't make decisions. He opened the maintenance panel beneath the cockpit console, revealing a tangled mess of wires, some melted, some severed. The Sabotage had disabled the altimeter, wing sensors, and the primary flight control messaging system. Johan worked quickly, cutting and reconnecting circuits, using stripped wires from the emergency kit to bypass corrupted lines. Sparks flew, and the plane jolted with each adjustment, but finally, the readings began to normalize. Partial communication with air traffic control returned. A faint static signal emerged, confirming that at least one channel was now functional. The first officer exhaled. Sensors are stabilizing. Communications are coming back online. Good, Johan said. But we still have a fire in the left wing. If it spreads, it will compromise the internal structure. We need to starve it. The fire warning light blinked relentlessly. Johan assessed the situation quickly. He initiated a selective depressurization sequence, venting air above the affected section to reduce oxygen feeding the flames. Sparks and smoke curled upward as the flames began to shrink, flickering before disappearing entirely. The warning light dimmed. For a brief moment, a sense of relief filled the cockpit, but Johan's eyes remained sharp. Engine 1 is still dead, the captain said quietly. We can glide on engine 2, but not through this storm. Not at this altitude. Johan nodded. We're going to restart it manually. It's risky, but we have no choice. If we fail, we lose the plane. If we don't try, we lose the plane. The first officer's voice was barely audible. Manual restart? In these conditions? Are you serious? Completely serious, Johan said. Follow my instructions exactly. He guided them through the procedure, adjusting airflow, manipulating the fuel cutoff, timing the ignition precisely. The engine coughed and sputtered with each attempt. The plane pitched violently in response to the turbulence, but Johan remained calm, correcting the pilot's timing and angle with pinpoint accuracy. On the fifth attempt, a deep rumble filled the cabin, followed by a roar as engine 1 sprang to life. The vibration steadied and both engines hummed steadily. The immediate threat had been neutralized. The fire was extinguished, the saboteur restrained, the engines alive, and partial control restored. Yet Johan knew the most dangerous challenge remained: landing. The aircraft was damaged, systems partially compromised, and the storm still raged. Precision and nerves would be everything. He leaned back slightly, scanning the stormy horizon. We've survived the sabotage, he said, voice steady. Now comes the hardest part, getting this plane on the ground safely. And we don't have much runway to do it. The captain swallowed and nodded. Then let's prepare. We follow your lead. Johan's eyes narrowed. The lives of everyone on board depended on what came next. Every calculation, every maneuver, every second of preparation would determine whether Flight A97 became a story of survival or tragedy. He exhaled slowly and tightened his grip on the panel. The storm wasn't finished with them. Neither was the flight. And Johan Willim knew that failure was not an option. The storm outside had not relented. Rain hammered against the fuselage of Flight A97, and lightning split the sky, illuminating the endless darkness of the Atlantic. The aircraft groaned under the strain of turbulent winds, every shudder echoing through the cabin like a warning. Inside the cockpit, the captain and first officer worked in tense coordination. following every instruction from Johan Willim, whose eyes were locked on the runway of a small military airstrip that had appeared like a lifeline on the radar. It was barely long enough for the plane, and with its damaged systems and half-functioning engines, the approach would be a test of precision, nerve, and timing unlike any they had ever experienced. Asterisk, speed at 180 knots. The first officer said, voice tight, "We need to slow down to 135 to touch down safely, but with crosswinds and turbulence, asterisk. Do it gradually," Johan interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "Use the wind. Don't fight it. Let it guide the plane." Asterisk passengers braced themselves, clinging to armrests, some closing their eyes. The children whined softly, and the flight attendants called for calm, guiding passengers into brace positions. Johan didn't look at them. His focus was entirely on the instruments, the horizon, and the storm outside. Every angle, every gust, every second of time mattered. Asterisk. Landing gear? Johan asked. Asterisk, half deployed, the captain replied. The full extension could fail. This is the safest compromise. Asterisk. Johan nodded. Good. Keep it steady. We can do this. Asterisk. The runway lights appeared faintly through the sheets of rain. It was barely visible, stretching like a ribbon across the wet ground. Johan leaned over the panel, guiding the pilots through precise adjustments to pitch, yaw, and throttle. The plane pitched slightly to the right as a sudden gust hit, and Johan corrected instantly, his hands moving over controls he wasn't even physically touching, issuing rapid-fire instructions. Asterisk, 20 feet. 10 feet, flare now. Asterisk, the captain pulled back gently on the yoke. The nose lifted slightly, and the fuselage scraped against the wet runway. Sparks erupted as the partially deployed landing gear absorbed the impact, resisting collapse. The plane slid forward, shuddering violently under the stress, but Johan kept his focus unbroken. Asterisk, reverse thrust. He ordered. Engine 2 responded immediately, Engine 1 sputtering but holding. The plane skidded, sliding left, then right, as the pilots corrected every movement. Sparks flew from the tires and rain sprayed in every direction, but slowly the plane's speed began to decrease. Inch by inch it came under control. Asterisk finally, after what felt like an eternity, the plane ground to a stop. Silence fell over the cabin, broken only by the soft patter of rain on the fuselage. Passengers remained in their seats for a moment, disbelieving that they were alive. Then tears, shouts, and laughter erupted. Families hugged. Children clung to parents, and strangers embraced as the realization dawned they had survived. Asterisk emergency vehicles surrounded the plane almost immediately, but there was no fire, no further danger. The passengers began to evacuate, some limping, others shaken but grateful, all alive. Johan remained the last to step off the aircraft. He surveyed the runway, the rain now easing into a light drizzle, and allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The plane was safe, the lives aboard preserved, and the saboteur restrained. Asterisk, the captain approached him, extending a hand, his face pale but filled with gratitude. "You saved us," he said. "I don't know how to thank you." Asterisk. Johan grasped the captain's hand firmly. "You flew the plane. I just helped." Asterisk, but the captain knew the truth. Without Johan Willim, Flight A97 would have been a headline, a tragedy lost to the ocean. Johan had neutralized the sabotage, stabilized the systems, extinguished the fire, and guided the pilots through the most impossible landing any of them could have imagined. Asterisk. Reporters and emergency personnel approached, cameras flashing and microphones raised, but Johan did not pause. He walked past the crowd, leaving the chaos behind. His expression was calm, unreadable, as always. He was a ghost, a guardian who had saved 316 lives and asked for nothing in return. Asterisk as he disappeared into the misty tarmac. The storm finally began to ease completely. The first rays of sunlight pierced the clouds, illuminating the runway, the aircraft, and the survivors. It was a quiet victory, one that no one would fully understand but everyone aboard would never forget. Asterisk. For Johan Willim, the mission was over. For the passengers, it was the miracle of Flight A97. But for the world's most elite intelligence officer, there was always another mission, another danger. Another impossible situation waiting just beyond the horizon. He walked away into the morning, disappearing as silently as he had arrived, leaving only the memory of courage, precision, and the unwavering calm that had saved hundreds of lives.